Whenever internet was introduced to the world in the 1990s, it didn't take very long for it to become popular. Just like any invention that has goods and bads, internet had goods and bads as well. And one of the biggest problems on the internet is the dark web. The internet grew and grew until we get to the year 2000, and this is the year where dark web is starting to take off, but it's not that big yet, because buying illegal stuff like this with regular money was very difficult, and that is why it took 10 years for the dark web to actually start being useful. When you get to the year 2010, a form of currency is introduced to the world that's perfect for the people of the dark web. Cryptocurrency, mainly Bitcoin. Bitcoin was perfect for criminals because they could buy and sell stuff without being tracked, and it was Bitcoin alone that made dark web what it is today. One of the very first famous websites on the dark web was Silk Road. The Silk Road, which was an anonymous marketplace, had more than 100,000 customers per month. Silk Road was making millions of dollars per year. And when someone is making that much money, that's when the feds and the police get involved to figure out who's behind all this. And finally, 3 years later, in the year 2013, they finally figure out who is behind the Silk Road website. And that's why after the Silk Road, a whole list of other types of illegal websites started to form in the dark web. Another website that got famous after the Silk Road was Evolution. But Evolution was different from the marketplace that we knew, because they were kinda like a dealer or the middleman. They would take the Bitcoin or any other cryptocurrency and then hold it off until you get your product and pay the seller. And they would be the middleman making a whole lot of money. And their deal was to keep about 4% of the transaction. Hundreds of thousands of dollars would go into the pocket of Evolution, and they would pay it to different sellers. And since the transaction took some time, Evolution usually had millions of dollars in Bitcoin. When you get to the year 2015 and millions of dollars is in Evolution's hands and they're waiting for a transaction, and all of a sudden the website goes offline, which you could call this a dash scam, because they took all the money that the people had gave them and just went offline. So the people that ran Evolution, or the person that ran it, came up millions of dollars of scammer money. After Evolution, another famous website came up, Agora, and it got quickly shut down. And after Agora, website after website would come along, get a little well known, and then go offline again. When you get to the year 2017, there's a very famous dark web website named Alphabay. You could compare Alphabay to a website like Amazon. It was very easy to use, and you could find anything but illegal. Alphabay had started in 2014, but it took a minute for it to be famous, and in 2017, it's at the tippity top. The owner of this website was a man named Alpha02, so of course there was no real name behind this man. When Alphabay started, they sold stolen credit card numbers to different types of people. And whenever they realized that the website is actually taking off and there's a whole lot of customers, they started adding all types of criminal things that they would be interested in. There were a lot of illegal things on this website. You could buy them and you could hire different types of people, like for money laundering or as a hitman. Alpha02 had designed his website in a way that not the seller or the buyer would know who is who, and all the information would get blended into one another, so it would be all a smoothie. And that is why Alphabay was known as a safe website in the dark web. From now on, Alphabay continues to grow, and different websites come and go like usual. When you get to the year 2017, Alphabay is at its peak. There are more than 200,000 buyers and 40,000 sellers. This is when Alphabay has finally turned into the most famous website in the dark web, and it quickly went to a point where it was exponentially growing in a day, and in a couple months it turned into 300,000 buyers. Alphabay was selling more than $500,000 per day, and just like usual, Alpha O2 was making his commission in these transactions. Each transaction, Alpha O2 needed 4% of it. In a situation like this, when an illegal website continues to grow and get more and more famous, this is when different governments and different agencies start to get suspicious and start looking into it. Finding a person like that's this careful with his name is not easy whatsoever, which is why the FBI and the DEA got involved. So one of the ways these feds start their research on the dark web is that they become a buyer to figure out if they can see who the owner is and who's running the show. But it seems like Alpha O2 was extremely careful. Whichever thing they bought, they couldn't find anything on the owner of the website. One day when a DEA employee is on his computer and he's researching Alphabay, all of a sudden he gets an email from an anonymous sender. This email causes this DEA agent to have access to the real email that Alpha O2 uses. But how is that? In the email that was sent to the DEA agent, it had information about the emails that Alpha O2 used to send to the people that would sign up to his website early in 2014. And he quickly changed the idea because he was using his real email to send that. But the EEA agent had all the information. Nobody knew who sent the email, but a lot of people say it was probably one of his competitors or his enemy. His email was pimpalex91@hotmail.com. There was a party in the DEA offices because with the help of this email, they also had access to Alex's photo. The 91 in his email also allowed them to figure out that Alex was born in the year 1991, which made the search much easier. With the help of this simple email, they figured out who he is, what his full name is, where he was born, and where he lives. They quickly realized that his first and last name is Alexander Cazes, and he was born and raised in Quebec, Canada. But with all that information, they couldn't just go and arrest him because they didn't even know where he lived. With all the equipment available to the FBI, they quickly realized that he's a software designer and he has his own company. They realized that his company is located in Thailand and he also has a Thai wife. When they researched a little bit more and the Thai government started to help out, they realized that he has 3 houses in Bangkok. After figuring out that he lives in Bangkok, the FBI decided to go there with the help of the Thai police. When they get closer to him, they realize, wow, what a luxurious life. He has 3 houses. He has luxurious cars like Lamborghini Aventadors. They knew everything about Alexander Cazes, but they still did not want to go to his house and arrest him right away. They needed more information. One of the most important information they needed is that when they arrest him, they want his laptop to be fully unlocked, because if they arrest him, he will never open up the computer. Eventually, on the 5th of July 2017, it was time to get the king of the dark web. Alexander Cazes is on his computer and he has no idea that how many police officers and federal agents are looking for him. When it turns dark, a lady, which was an undercover Thai police, drove her Toyota Camry into the front gate of Alexander Cazes. Since the sound was extremely loud, Alexander comes down the stairs and he's angry that his fence got ran over. So he starts running at the lady and starts shouting, but all of a sudden, 5 police officers tackle Alexander. And of course, a few agents go into his house to find his laptop. And there it was, an unlocked laptop. Alexander's wife was also arrested, but not for hacking and dark web, but for money laundering. They realize she has no idea what her husband does, but she was involved in the money laundering. 1 week later, on the 12th of July, Alexander commits suicide in prison, and we're not sure how. On the news everywhere it said that the king of the dark web is no longer here. After this, Alphabay goes offline. But it's not like the dark web is empty or something, because there are plenty of more active websites than ever before, but none of them had been able to be as successful as Alphabay. We have an old video about the dark web and how we say never enter the dark web because the risk is not worth it. And it remains today, never enter the dark web.